You're listening to the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast, a place for sex addicts to share their experiences of recovery, to help break the stigma, myths, and misconceptions of sex addiction. This podcast may contain topics of sexuality, sexual trauma, dysfunction, or other things that may be triggering, so listener discretion is advised. Hello, and welcome to the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast. My name is Jason, I'm a sex addict, and I will be your podcast host for today. Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to episode 137 of the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast. This week is a first step, in fact, and it will be one that I am reading. Back in June, through the Bay Area SAA.org website, we have a contacts page there, and this one was the subject of Other, and said, "Hi, I'm a sex addict, and I've been working on my first step. I shared it with my therapist and sponsor, and was encouraged to reach out to the podcast to share with a larger audience. I would love the opportunity to send over my first step for it to be read on the show if possible. Thanks and regards, Adi." Adi and I have been emailing back and forth, trying to figure out what would be the best way to proceed. Since it wasn't being recorded at a meeting, we were looking at the possibility of setting up a Zoom link for recording and whether or not to invite other people to witness the first step. We've done that in the past, but ultimately we decided that I would read his first step for the podcast. And as we get to it, you'll understand why we chose this route. But I did want to do a reading on the first step. I don't think I've read this on the podcast before. This comes from Voices of Recovery from February 19th on page 50. And it starts out, "In our addiction, we held on to the belief that we were in control of our sexual behavior and could successfully manage our lives." And that comes from Sex Addicts Anonymous, page 22. "It wasn't until I started to work the SAA program that I could finally admit I had a problem. My sex addiction was destroying me. It was out of control. Like a caged wild animal, my acting out behavior had broken free, and I was completely powerless to stop it. I had to admit defeat and let go in order to see how insane I had become. My resistance, though, was strong. My sex addiction has always been grounded on one fundamental human need: safety. As a survivor of childhood incest, I was never safe. By acting out, my primary instinct was to gain control over people, places, and things, and myself. I tried to play God and successfully run my sex life in the only way I knew: to win. Step 1 teaches me the miracle paradox of recovery. To truly win, I must defeat. Only by admitting and ultimately accepting that I am 100% powerless over my sex addiction and that my life is unmanageable can I begin the life-saving journey of the 12 steps. I can now accept that the moment I begin to practice step 1, I won. I let go of my way, which never worked, and allowed my higher power to heal me from the inside out. And the meditation, step 1 grants me the humility I need to let go of control and trust my higher power." And yeah, the reason I chose this is in step 1, we are waving that white flag, admitting defeat, and ultimately able to gain recovery through working the 12 steps. And it all starts at step 1. So with Adi's first step, I really loved his narrative style. There is a through line about the ocean. And as I was reading it, I was hearing the sounds of the beach and hearing the waves. And I thought this would be a fun opportunity to layer in some sounds of the ocean during this first step. Last week, I was fortunate enough to be at the beach and recorded some sounds that I would love to layer in. I will probably also be using a few other recordings of sounds of the ocean throughout this. So we'll see how it works out in post-production. And now, without further ado, I am going to turn this over to myself, reading the first step of Adi. I hope you enjoy. My experience. I am standing here asking you to join me on a journey, my journey. It has made me laugh, made me cry, and all emotions in between. My life is very much like a child on a beach. It starts far from the water, in the safety of people, parents, friends, and relatives. From the outside, I am a happy child, surrounded by those who love me. But each of their love comes with strings attached. They don't love me for me, but what I mean to them. My dad sees his duty in me, his need to be validated, his dead wife, my dead mother, and he has put me as his emotional fulcrum. My relatives see me as a son they don't have. The happy child that is playing is very alone and scared of not being loved. So I start doing things to make others happy. The first line in the sand, the one that tells the child that it is worthy of love, no matter what, was never drawn, and I never knew when I crossed it. I am now older, in the teens. My new stepmother is now the object of my fantasies. I am Oedipus, and she is my lab rat. She is alone. My paternal family does not want her. My dad is unable to provide any intimacy, and I am her moral and emotional support. I start being a puppeteer, the second line, where a boy learns healthy emotional and sexual practices were ignored, and I crossed them without missing a step. I am now older still. I am done with undergraduate. I am doing a master's. I am accepted by those close to me, but I don't feel like I belong. I crave for connection, and at the same time, run away from true connection. My ideas of what it is to be in a relationship are starting to warp. My ideas of what a woman is starting to distort. She is not a person as much as she is a conquest. I am closer to the spray of the ocean now. My cousin and one other woman come to me for help. I don't see them, I see their bodies. I get to their bodies, I leave them, and their souls are destroyed. That line that said a person ought to be respected for who she is crossed. I tell myself at least it is not for money, it was consensual. I am working, I have my own money, no one is the boss of me. My colleagues are good people, they have heart and soul. I feel alone, I am digging a hole in the beach, and I am burying myself. From my hole I cannot see anyone. I can only see their shadows and hear their voices. The men's shadows are defined by how they talk and how they look. The women's shadows is just how they look. There are no lines in this hole down here, just me and the shadows in my head. I am in Hong Kong. I am older, but none the wiser. I drink, I smoke. I am alone in a crowd of friends. I'm a double master's with a degree in one of the hardest fields from one of the most prestigious schools in the world. I am the king of the world, a world that contains no one. I go to massage parlors, pay for happy endings. I meet a woman on a website. I give her hope to have a relationship. I'm engaged to my girlfriend, but she is in the US. What she does not know will not hurt her. I am not one person. I am a different person to a different person. I've crossed the line that I will not pay for intimacy and have drawn a new line. At least it is not emotional involvement and is just physical. I do not realize that it is emotional for others, but what do I care for others? I left that line behind a long time ago. I am married. My wife loves me. She has loved me for a long time, and I have never been nice to her. I have insulted her. I've made her feel invisible, and still I thought that I was doing her a favor by being with her. She has been pulling me out of the hole, and I have been pulling her into it. But then I don't fully come out. I power through the sand, carving a path to the water, for I hear the water is cool and comforting. I am living with my wife, but every woman is a target. Every woman is a possible conquest. I have convinced myself that I am the victim here and not the oppressor. I'm now completely lost in my head where I deserve intimacy, and that intimacy can be found only outside of the person who is walking towards the water holding my hand. I think she is holding me back from the water. She is not. She is still protecting me from it. She is the first person who is protecting me from life. I don't see it. I let go of her hand and move forward. She keeps trying to run to me and hold my hand. She is falling. She is bruised. She is battered. She is alone. But I deserve intimacy elsewhere. I am moving forward on the beach. I have a son. He is funny, he is smart, he is beautiful. His face lights up when he sees me. He is a kid, but I see him only as an anchor. He needs things. He needs emotional support. He needs physical support. He needs to be loved. He needs to be accepted. He needs. He is me when I was young. It is my job to give him everything and more. It is my responsibility that I learn from my life and do not do unto him what others have done unto me. I need to draw a line in the sand behind which is my tribe, my wife, my son, and me, and on the other side is the world. I need to go to war with anyone who so much attempts to come near that line to harm my family. I cross the line to the other side. I leave my tribe and I go forward. I get close to the water. It seems cool, refreshing, and welcoming. I don't look back. I am now doing well at work. I'm traveling. I'm a storyteller, and I am telling every woman that I'm a victim and they can save me. I don't get anywhere with any of them until I do. The story worked, so now I believe in it even more. I am now ankle deep in the water, and I love feeling the sand washing away from under me. I don't realize that my life is washing away. The pandemic hits, we move houses, we are alone. It's just me and my tribe. They have closed the beach, and I am hating every second of having to be there for my wife and my son. The center of my universe is outside of my universe. I rush back into the water when the beach reopens. I have left my son and my wife behind again. I start cruising the internet to meet women. I was taking a step forward without knowing how deep the water could get. I had reached out to a 40-year-old mother of 5. She was in an abusive relationship, or so she told me. Now my savior complex rose. I wanted to save her, and the online chat moved into text. She sent me a picture. She wanted one. I sent her a picture, and she seemed to like it. I liked that she liked it. Every time my wife told me that I looked good, it did not matter. But when this woman did, it made me feel good. I told her there was no way to have a relationship with her. She understood, and she said she was open to a relationship that was based only on sex. This flicked a switch in my brain. What I thought was a dream was now available. From there, it quickly delved into racy texts, fantasy, and planning getaways. However, when she sent me a semi-naked picture, I was not attracted to the woman. She was not the kind of woman that I had seen in porn all of my life. That stopped in its tracks. There are no more lines, just steps forward. The lines cannot exist when I'm in the water. I'm moving ahead. The water is up to my knees now. I found that a messaging app could show you who was in your vicinity. I looked and found women who were too good to be true. One look at their profile, and I knew that they were not there looking for a relationship. They were service providers. I was going to stand in the knee-deep water. I'm just going to look at the pictures. This is no different than me looking at porn. I took another step forward. The water is up to mid-thigh now. I messaged a couple of them whose profiles were not completely explicit. Reaching out to them does not mean that I am cheating on my wife. The responses, it was obvious that the women were service providers. It did not even occur to me that they could be scammers. Almost all of them would ask for some deposit to talk to you, and I would stop. A couple of them did not. They were okay just chatting. I was being pulled by the current, and I did not know it. One of the women seemed to be exactly like the pictures and videos I had been seeing. At some point, the discussion went to cost, and by this time I was hooked. I forgot the current and sent her the money. The water was up to my stomach now. She asked me to meet her at a local hotel. I reached there, and she did not turn up. By this time, I had not stopped reaching out to other women. I would just stop talking to them when they brought up money. Now that I had realized that the women had no intention of meeting up, the rational response would be to give up. Nope. Now I go and send money to another woman. Another step. She then tells me that she needs some more for a condom. I sent that. Another step. Then she tells me that she needs more as a deposit because I am a first-time customer. I go back to texting the woman who stood me up. She feeds me a story that I don't even remember anymore. I go back to sending her more money, another step away from the shore. I find that there are other sites where there are professional escorts. There is no advance, only cash transactions. I find a couple of sites, and every time that my wife goes to work, it is time for me to find someone. I find a woman who is available immediately. I drive over to her seedy hotel. Another step away from the shore, and the water is up to my neck, and I am still trying to move forward. I get her a coffee on the way. I am the nice guy. She opens the door, and it stinks of cigarettes. I don't leave. She does not look anything like her photos. I don't leave. She says she cannot offer oral services because she has tooth issues. She opens her mouth, and half the teeth are missing. I do not leave. Someone comes and knocks on her door. She must change rooms. I stand in the corridor. I do not leave. She is in a room with her partner and children. I finally ask to leave. I then find a woman who does not look as good as the rest. She is nearby. I go to her, cash only. She has flabs of skin all around her. She stays in the room with two men. With her, I finally have sex. It is not like what I expect it to be, but it is sex. I'm the nice guy. I treat them right. I talk to them like people. Another step away from the shore. The water is slowly at my chin. I do not notice it. I am in California with my family. We are at Big Sur. It is among the most beautiful places I've been to. I am with the people who love me the most. I am sending the pictures to some escorts. Another step away from the shore. I go on a work trip to Boston. I am in a room. I find a woman. I go to her. I have sex. I come back. I find another one. She comes to my room. We talk for a long time. We have sex. I have found a site that reviews escorts. I have found my people. I am reviewing the women that I have met. The water has gone over my head, and I am drowning. I have one last breath before I will start drowning. I don't care. I just need to take more steps forward. I come back home. I am hooked on these sites. I read a review. I look at the top 10, and I want them all. Some of them are expensive. I open a new bank account to route some of my salary into the new account. My wife will never find out. I find another woman here. I go to her hotel. I find a woman who has a 20-year-old daughter. She is moving houses. I don't care. I just want mine. Some of the escorts need verification. They want a picture of me and my license. I send it. I am going to visit Miami for a conference. I find a Tantra practitioner there. I give her the deposit 4 months ahead of the visit. This is not a spur of the moment anymore. I am planning for months in advance. I am still talking to the 2 women on that app. I don't know when or how, but I decide that I am going to be a sugar daddy for one of them. I start sending her monthly allowance, and I have not met her yet. She sends me pictures and videos. I spend all of my time texting her. The other, I have used my real name. She finds out where I live and where I work. She blackmails me that if I don't send her more money, she will out me to my wife and my colleagues. I send her money. I tell my wife that I'm being scammed and that my account was hacked. I'm now using my son's tablet to talk to women. I am moving money from my main account multiple times a week. I am drowning, and I've come this far without knowing how to swim, and I am not even treading water. My strength. For the first time in a long time, I look back at the beach. I am too far away to see it clearly. I look around me. I am surprised that I am not alone. There are others around me who are floating. I shout out to them. They put their hands out. They don't know how to swim completely, but they give me a hand and let me use them to keep myself afloat. My head is above water for the first time, and I can finally take a breath. I ask them who they are. They are people like me who walked into the water, never learning to swim until it was too late. They too were drowning, and somehow they found others. They found acceptance, that even though we don't know how to swim, we can float for a while. They have found that it is only back on the beach that people who can't swim are ashamed. Here in the water, whether you can swim or not, you can float. They then gave me the most important message of all. It is enough to be able to float. All I must do is not sink. They gave me the tools to float, a flotation device that I can hold on to, the meetings. They gave me a whistle to blow if I'm in trouble, the fellowship. They gave me how to reach those who could teach me how to swim, my sponsor and my CSAT. They have shown me the parts of the water where there's more salt and I can float easily and enjoy the sun, my outer circle. They have shown me the water where the current gets dangerous, my middle circle, and that the dangerous current will drag me beyond the breakers, my inner circle, where I will drown again. They finally gave me binoculars to be able to see the beach, to see the people I have left behind, and those I have hurt. I want to float. I don't want to drown anymore. I try to listen and learn from them. My hope. It has been 7 months since I drowned. They say that once you have a near-death experience, you won't see life the same way again. That is true for me. I had to drown to be able to learn to float. I'm now learning to swim with my CSAT and my sponsor. I am now reaching out to others when I see them put out a hand. I am now responding when someone blows a whistle. I do not get close to the currents. I'm still not comfortable floating in the sun. I have been able to, with my limited swimming, wave to my son on the shore. He is waving back, and that is beyond joyful. I am still trying to wave to my wife, but she is not looking in my direction. She is looking at her wounds and her scars. I caused those wounds. I cannot heal her, but I can wait for her to heal. I want to be able to swim back to the shore. I am floating and I am swimming in the right direction. The waters are cold, the currents are strong, but I see the shore ahead of me. Even in the distance, I see the shore ahead of me, even if right now it seems deserted. I see the shore ahead of me, and those who have managed to swim back to the shore are now cheering me on. The sun is starting to rise, and it looks like my walk in the night in the sea is ending. I am not safe yet. I have just started coming from the darkness to the light, and I have hope. I am not hoping yet, but I have the hope to be able to hope. I hope to be present, true, authentic, and real. I cannot forget my ordeal and what I put others through. But I can move on, one stroke at a time, one kick at a time, one breath at a time. This is my story, and I will float. Wow. Thank you so much, Audie, for this. It was really powerful and an emotional thing for me to read. One thing that I've passed on to others in the program, my sponsees and people working on their first step, that it's one thing to write it, another thing to read it, and another thing to speak it. So I got this back in June, and I've read through it and thought it was an excellent story, but just reading it here on the podcast, the emotions were there for me. So yeah, thank you so much, Audie, for sharing your experience, your strength, and your hope. This was an amazing story, and yeah, and I wish you well in your further steps. Yeah, if you would ever like to be a guest here on the podcast, please let me know. But yeah, this was incredibly powerful, and I'm so grateful that you reached out to share that with the podcast community. Amazing. So before closing out this episode, I had 2 songs that I wanted to play, and I believe we have one listener feedback that I would like to read and a YouTube comment. So thinking of Audie's first step and the way he ended it here with finding that tribe, finding that group of people to help out, to help him float, finding that connection with people in SAA. There was a song that I wanted to share, and my friend Mike, who was on episode 102, while we were on a meeting the other day, had sent me a link to the song called Find Your People by Drew Holcomb and the Neighbors. So I don't know much about the band, but when I heard this song, it is just awesome. So finding your people, finding your tribe, finding the ones that are going to help you out. So I wanted to play some of this song, and here is Find Your People by Drew Holcomb and the Neighbors.
You gotta find your people that'll call your bluff, who'll ride along when the road is rough. You gotta find your people, the ones that make you feel equal. They pick you up and don't put you down, help you find your way in the lost and found. In a world full of strangers, you don't know who to trust. All you see is danger, trying to find what you lost. You can't go it alone, everybody needs help. You gotta find your people, then you'll find yourself.
So cool. I love this, and I will definitely be adding this to my playlist. A great song of connection. And I'm also interested in finding out more about Drew Holcomb and other music that he has. The other piece of music that has just been on my mind for the past week, I have been watching the Olympics and really, really enjoying it. The opening ceremony was amazing. And if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you've known I've talked about a French band called Gojira. I think the first time I talked about them was on episode 50, but they had the chance to play at the opening ceremony for the Olympics. And this is the first time that a metal band of this caliber has ever been incorporated into anything at the Olympics, anything on a world stage this huge. And just to have this aggressive music was really, really cool. As a matter of fact, I told my wife that Gojira was going to be playing the opening ceremony. She's like, yeah, bullshit. But when we were watching it, and there they were, I was like, oh, this is amazing. So a little setup. During the Liberté section of the opening ceremony, coming right out of their section on Les Mis, they went right into Gojira playing the song Asa Ira. And Asa Ira was a song written, I believe, in 1790. So the beginning of this segment is a decapitated Marie Antoinette singing lines from the song.
Ça ira, ça ira, ça ira. Les aristocrates à la lanterne. Ça ira, ça ira, ça ira. Les aristocrates, on les pendra.
And Asa Ira translates to "it will be fine" or "it will be okay." The other cool thing about this performance is where they performed it, at the Conciergerie, and this is where Marie Antoinette was actually held during the trial before her beheading. And it was an amazing backdrop. This performance, it was a collaboration with Gojira and opera singer Marina Viotti, and when she comes in, it is just awesome. The lyrics that she sings, I'm not going to say the French, but the translation is, it will be okay, rejoice, it will be okay, the good times will come, it will be fine, mea culpa. Joe Duplantier, the singer from Gojira, sings, let's rejoice, good times will come, without fear for fire or flame. Ça ira. I have just been loving this performance, listening to this song. Let's rejoice. Good times will come no matter how bad things get. So without further ado, here is Gojira at the 2024 Olympics in Paris, the opening ceremony, playing Ça ira. Just love that, and I'm hoping that they do a studio version of this. And just in comparison, this was their interpretation of the song, so it featured a lot of parts of the original piece from the late 1700s, but it is not a direct version. So I wanted to play a little bit of what I found for the French Revolutionary song, Ça ira.
Ça ira, ça ira, ça ira. Les aristocrates à la lanterne. Ça ira, ça ira, ça ira. Les aristocrates, on les pondra. La 300 ans qui font la guerre au son des fifres et des tambours, en nous laissant crever d'une misère. Ça ne pouvait pas durer toujours.
Quite different. Anyway, I really love that. Yeah, as a metalhead, I am just so excited to see this on the world stage. An incredibly awesome moment. So from that, I would like to turn to an email that we got. I believe I'm almost caught up with all of the emails. There was one that I saw the other day that I don't think I've read on the podcast, but I have been unable to find it. Actually, we got two this week. And of course, I'm using initials. This one says, "Hey Jason, I'm Jay and I'm an addict. I've been in recovery for almost a year now for both substance abuse and sex addiction. I've been listening to your podcast a little while now and I'm really enjoying it. I'd be interested in being a guest eventually, but the reason for my email today is that I came across episode 114 with Jim W. I really connected with his story, as there are many parallels with my own. I was wondering if there was any way for you to forward my contact info to him. I would very much like to get to know him more and possibly ask him to sponsor me. I'm in a small city in Canada with a limited SAA recovery community. and I've yet to find other LGBT members that I can really connect with. And I have not been able to find a sponsor either. I know it's a big ask and may not be possible, but I thought I would throw it out there. Signed, Jay. And yes, I was just able to get Jim W's contact info. He was a speaker at the SAA COSA speaker meeting, and I did not have his direct contact, but I just came off of the August speakers meeting and got a hold of the committee, and they managed to get his contact info for me. So yes, I will be forwarding on this email. The other one that came in, it says, "Hi Jason, my name is F. I've been listening to the podcast for about a month now, and it has really helped me to decide to get involved with SAA. As a kid, I attended a lot of my dad's AA meetings and saw it work for him for over a decade. So I've always had confidence in 12-step programs. After doing some research, I decided SAA is the right fit for me, but there aren't any in-person meetings within 2 hours from where I live. So the podcast has been a great resource for me. I haven't attended any Zoom meetings yet, but plan to. I found myself in serious legal trouble as a result of my addiction at just 22 years old. This was my major discovery and was an upheaval in my life. I was facing the possibility of a 5-year minimum prison sentence, but luckily I got 5 years probation instead. I was required to complete a treatment program based on my offense, which included group therapy and had some similarities with SAA, but no spiritual aspect. I did well in treatment, but had some slip-ups despite the great risk of violating probation. These slip-ups made me realize that I'm powerless over my addiction and that I can't overcome it alone. I'm close to completing my probation, and I'm looking forward not only to basic freedom, but also the mental and spiritual freedom that comes with long-term sobriety. A fellowship of recovering sex addicts who can help keep me on track is what I need, and I look forward to being at a place in my sobriety where I can help others. I've recently had what can be described as a spiritual awakening. I've always sought spirituality through nature, but it has been a vague and ill-defined spirituality. I have accepted that there is a higher power that can guide me to my path, and that I can work to fulfill what that higher power wants for my life. After so many coincidences, I realize that they are not coincidences at all. I also sometimes find spirituality in music, and I was excited when I first heard you bring up Parabola on the podcast. The lyrics to that song have always resonated with me. I play metal guitar and write lyrics, and I'd like to write more lyrics about my spiritual beliefs, even if very few people hear them. Thank you for the service that you have provided me and so many others. I hope that my involvement in the program will bring positive changes to my life and to everyone around me. Signed, F. Oh, yeah, thank you so much for that. And yes, that was Parabola by Tool, and I first brought that up on episode 9, and I've played it on a few other episodes of the podcast as well. That is an incredibly powerful piece of music for me. But yeah, I'm really glad that you are finding a spirituality that is working for you in your life, and by writing into the podcast here and sharing it with the world, you are providing a service to others. So thank you so much for this email. And the only comment that we've gotten on YouTube recently was from episode 134 with Jenny K speaking at the SAA and COSA speaker meeting, and that was from May. And the comment says, "What an amazing talk. So powerful." And yes, I completely agree. It was really cool being on the speaker meeting tonight. Both Jenny and Jerry were there, as well as I think I had counted 10 other previous speakers from the speaker meeting who have been featured on the podcast. So it'll take me a few weeks before I get the recordings from today's speaker meeting, but look forward to those coming up in the future. Something that I've been talking about for a while is episode 138. We are 138, the Misfits of Recovery. But yeah, we just recorded that one this week and had a ton of fun. We had 2 past guests and a listener of the podcast taking part in that conversation. And that one should be out within the next week or so. Like I'd mentioned, I had been watching the Olympics and taking a lot of downtime time away from editing the podcast and working on it. I've just needed a little bit of a breather here for a bit, and then I'll be back to sharing more episodes. But yeah, I will be continuing to watch the Olympics as well as a few other shows that I'm actively following. And a new recording that we have coming up in a couple of weeks is going to be around getting areas up and running with GSRs. I've talked about this on, I believe, episode 128, which was my workshop at the Bay Area retreat, looking at service and ways to get the areas up and running before the October conference. So we want the voice of SAA members to be heard at the October conference. There are a bunch of things being voted upon, including a change to one of the traditions. So if you are interested in sharing your voice with other SAA groups around the world to vote on things in October, you need to be part of an active area. So we will be having a discussion on that very soon. One last thing that I wanted to share before closing this out is the Serenity on the Sound retreat is coming up really soon up in Washington. This episode will be out a few days before the registration closes. So if you do hear this and are interested in going to the Puget Sound retreat, Serenity on the Sound, and that is available for both SAA and COSA members, you can go to soundretreat.org and register there. I've taken part in a number of their retreats when they were on Zoom. Unfortunately, I don't have the bandwidth to be able to travel up to Washington State this year, but I hope to be able to do that sometime in the future. So with that, I'm going to close out this episode. If you wanted to leave feedback for the podcast, you can reach us at feedback@sexaddictsrecoverypod.com. And if you wanted to get a hold of me personally to ask any questions about the program, to be a guest on the podcast, or anything else, you can reach me at jason@sexaddictsrecoverypod.com. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. And as always, keep coming back. The views and opinions contained in the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the Bay Area Intergroup or the ISO of SAA.